Is it possible that you could be both wired and tired at the same time? And not only that, you also might know that there are a variety of other symptoms like dry hair, dry skin, fatigue, foggy thinking, weight gain, water retention, mood changes, depression, forgetfulness, loss of muscle mass. Is it possible that all of these symptoms are associated with one single hormone? And the answer is yes, and that hormone is cortisol. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a good understanding of how it is that cortisol affects all of these different bodily systems. You're also going to understand the single most important test that you can do to measure your cortisol. And most importantly, I'm going to share with you the 3 supplements that I feel have the most supportive science in their ability to lower the adrenal cortisol response. My name is Scott Resnick. I'm a medical doctor, and I believe that the future of medicine is in individuals just like you learning to turn around your health without drugs. And today we are talking about cortisol. But if you are interested in knowing where your health falls along the functional health spectrum, I'd encourage you to look in the description below. And what I've done is I have done a small at-home PDF that will ask you 5 simple questions to help to assess where you are on the spectrum between health and disease. So check that out. But first, we're talking about cortisol. So cortisol is our primary stress hormone. And while many of us think that cortisol refers to getting away from a tiger or, participating in a fight, the truth of the matter is that cortisol is a hormone whose primary job is to raise our body's blood sugar. And basically, it's the king of hormones. And cortisol is going to lord over and control all aspects of your physiology because the most important thing at the end of the day is to raise our body's blood sugar, keeping our heart and our brain alive. Now, cortisol works across a number of different processes, but I like to remember to think about cortisol in concert with 2 other important hormones. This is the energetic triad of cortisol, insulin, and thyroid. Now remember, cortisol is a catabolic hormone, and what this means is that it is willing to break down all of our tissues to keep our heart and brain alive. It breaks down our muscles to liberate amino acids to make other proteins and to make neurotransmitters. It breaks down our fat reserves to make energy, and it breaks down our bones to liberate things like magnesium and calcium. But if cortisol is a catabolic hormone, breaking down our body in times of starvation or stress to keep us alive, insulin is its doppelganger. And insulin serves to increase our muscle mass, to work in an anabolic or muscle building fashion. And it serves not to increase the amount of blood glucose in the bloodstream, but to decrease it. So you can see how cortisol and insulin almost work like 2 sides of a yin yang. And the third most important factor around cortisol is our thyroid function. And it all makes sense. I mean, imagine that you and your tribe are starving. You're having a hard time finding food, and there's a long winter ahead. Now, you're not going to want to be running your body's engines at full tilt, which is 37 degrees centigrade. This is our standard basal body temperature. The truth is that the human body works great at 35 degrees Celsius, but we don't feel so good. We've got foggy thinking and dry hair, constipation, low libido, low energy. But our body and our physiology has always been willing to make that transaction to keep us alive until the bunnies and the berries and the fruits return in the next season. What's interesting is that cortisol affects thyroid handling across a number of its different components. So we know that cortisol affects the release of TSH centrally. It affects the way that the thyroid gland makes hormone, and cortisol also influences the way that T4, the inactive thyroid hormone, is converted to either its active form, T3, in the tissues, or its reverse T3, which helps to further suppress the thyroid response and lower our metabolism. What happens is that in a high cortisol response, we divert blood away from our hair, our skin, and our gut because we're trying to keep our core alive. And that's why so many of those symptoms all seem to result from a high cortisol state. So how do you measure cortisol? Now, many of you may have had your doctor order a single serum test. This is a fasting cortisol blood test that's done at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm here to tell you that this test is almost worthless to understand what's going on with your cortisol handling. Yes, it will tell you whether you've got Addison's disease, which is no cortisol, and a really a terminal condition, or if you've got Cushing's disease, which is a tumor that produces too much cortisol, but it tells you nothing about the intervals between those two extremes. The best way to measure cortisol is to obtain something known as a 4-part salivary cortisol test. And in other videos on this channel, I have reviewed how to understand and interpret this test. So if you really want to know what's going on with your cortisol handling, I'd recommend a 4-part salivary cortisol test, and be sure to include a marker known as DHEAS. Now, the last thing I want to do in this video is go over the 3 supplements that I feel have the most scientific literature to support their use. And the first is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an herb that is present and has been shown to improve the cortisol response as an adaptogenic herb. The next supplement that I think has the most research is something known as phosphatidylserine, and this is pretty cool. What they've done is they've taken trained athletes who can generate a set and known amount of work on something like an ergometric bicycle. And what they've shown is that with pre-treatment with phosphatidylserine, that these athletes experiencing the stress response of a heavy workout are able to lower their cortisol responses. And this has been proven in a number of different studies. And the last supplement that I feel has a good amount of scientific research is rhodiola. And what's interesting is that plants like ashwagandha and rhodiola live in fairly inhospitable environments. I mean, these are places where possibly high elevation or with low water, and they have developed molecules to help to protect their own DNA and their own stress response. And guess what? These molecules present in these plants also serves to improve our own stress response. And there's lots of science to demonstrate that. So there you have it. What you've learned in this video is how cortisol affects the important hormones in our energetic triad. And you can't be thinking about cortisol, insulin, and thyroid separately, but you need to be thinking about them collectively anytime you're evaluating an energy state. Remember that the best way to measure cortisol is with a 4-part salivary cortisol test, and don't let your doctor do a single serum test at 8 o'clock in the morning and tell you that everything is fine. I can tell you that it isn't. And finally, we reviewed 2 adaptogenic herbs, ashwagandha and rhodiola, as well as a fat, which is phosphatidylserine, all of which have been shown to help to modulate and decrease our cortisol response. Now, I believe that when it comes to using these adaptogenic herbs, the make and the dosing and the brand really matters. And if you look in the description below, I've got a link to my Fullscripts account. This is just a collection of what I think are the best of the best, with explanations as to how to utilize, dose, and follow the different herbs. It also comes with a pretty good discount and free shipping. So if that interests you, check it out in the description. And of course, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video. And take care.